The high-stakes conversation. Stop being a guest in their language. In a high-stakes room, your broken English isn't a weakness. It's a psychological weapon. While they are busy being smooth, you are being deadly. The 1% don't compete on grammar. They compete on frame control. The less you say, the more they pay. Own the silence. Rule the room. Look at the fluency fallacy. You've been told that to win in business, you need to sound like a native speaker. You believe that if you can just be smooth enough, fast enough, and idiomatic enough, you will finally have a seat at the table. This is a lie designed to keep you in a state of servitude. The 99% walk into a high-stakes conversation and they immediately surrender their power. They apologize for their English. They speak too much to compensate for their insecurity. They try to fill the air so the native speaker doesn't think they are slow. In doing so, they become transparent. They leak information. They show their hand. They play the game on the native speaker's home turf. In the Oasis, we don't play for fluency. We play for frame control. We realize that in a high-stakes room, your English isn't a language. It is a tactical filter. The 99% are verbal overspillers. They think that talking is leading. But in the world of the 1%, the person who speaks the most is the one with the least power. When you are a non-native speaker, you have a secret weapon, the underdog advantage. Because you aren't smooth, people underestimate you. They think you are simple. They let their guard down. They talk more to fill the silences you create. While they are busy trying to be hospitable or articulate, you are observing. You are measuring their tone. You are identifying their weaknesses. You are using your limited English as a shield that hides a sharpened mind. The 1% have realized that perfect English is often a distraction. Strategic English is what closes the deal. I promise you a paradigm shift that will turn your stutter into a stare down. We are going to move from participation to dominance. A high-stakes conversation is not about English. It is about human psychology. It is about who sets the frame. If you walk in and try to sound like them, you are playing their game. If you walk in and use your foreignness to slow down the clock, you are making them play your game. The 1% have a warrior's brevity. They don't use 10 words when 2 will do. They use the authority of the short sentence. They understand that a native speaker can be talked into a corner, but a silent master is impossible to move. We are trading social grace for surgical impact. Why is native fluency actually a disadvantage in a negotiation? Because it makes you predictable. Native speakers often fall into rhetorical patterns. They use filler logic. They get caught up in the performance of their own voice. You, the Oasis warrior, do not have that luxury. You have to be economical. This economy of language is perceived by the high-level brain as confidence. When you say the price is too high and then you stop, and you don't say another word for 60 seconds, you are exerting more silent power than any native speaker who gives a 5-minute explanation for their discount. You aren't struggling for words. You are holding the line. The 1% have realized that the blank space in your English is where the profit is made. The 1% have performed a psychological hijack on the concept of understanding. Most learners are terrified of saying, "I don't understand." They nod their heads and pretend to follow, even when they are lost. This is a slave move. The Oasis warrior uses strategic ignorance. They are not afraid to say, "Explain that again, more simply," or "I do not follow your logic." Why? Because it forces the native speaker to simplify their frame. It makes them do the work. It makes them justify their position. Every time you ask a native speaker to repeat or clarify, you are taking time from them. You are making them perform for you. You are moving from a student who is being tested to a judge who is evaluating. This is frame control in its most primal form. Look at the charisma trap. You think you need to be charming in English to be successful. Charisma is for salespeople. Gravitas is for owners. The 1% don't seek to be liked in a high-stakes conversation. They seek to be respected. They use non-reactive English. If a native speaker tries to use a joke, a sarcasm, or a fast-paced idiom to throw them off balance, the Oasis warrior doesn't flinch. They don't laugh if they don't find it funny. They don't pretend to get the idiom. They stay centered. They look the opponent in the eye and return to the core point. This linguistic stillness is terrifying to a native speaker. It makes you an enigma. It makes you a wall. And you cannot negotiate with a wall. You can only yield to it. This is the death of the apology. The 99% start every sentence with, "Sorry, my English is not good." In that moment, the negotiation is over. You have just told the other person that you are less than. The 1% never apologize for their language. They treat their English as a premium service. If they speak slowly, it is because their thoughts are deep. If they use simple words, it is because their logic is pure. They have performed a status coup. They don't see themselves as non-natives. They see themselves as global principles. The Oasis is a place where we don't translate. We transact. We don't care if our grammar is broken as long as our will is whole. The 99% are obsessed with nuance. They want to understand the hidden meanings. The 1% are obsessed with objectives. They know that in a boardroom, the most important things are numbers, deadlines, and commitments. These things don't require idioms. They require clarity. By stripping away the native fluff, the Oasis warrior becomes a linguistic sniper. They hit the target while the native speaker is still cleaning their gun. They have realized that complexity is the enemy of execution. They use their limited English to force a high-value simplicity. They don't play the nuance game. They play the results game. Ask yourself, who is the host in the conversation? Most of you feel like the guest, but a host is the one who controls the environment. You can be the host even in their language. You do it by controlling the pace. You do it by controlling the silence. You do it by being the person who asks the questions. The 1% have realized that the person who answers is the servant, and the person who asks is the master. They use strategic inquiry. They use their English to probe, to challenge, and to anchor the negotiation. They don't try to win the argument. They set the price. This is the coup d'etat of the high-stakes room. We are moving from linguistic insecurity to psychological dominance. We are leaving the language school and entering the command center. We are trading the need for approval for the will to power. Your English is not a subject. It is a weapon system. And a weapon doesn't need to be beautiful. It only needs to be lethal. Are you ready to stop talking and start negotiating? The 1% are waiting for you, but they will only respect the ones who have the silent power to hold the room. Burn the apology. Lock the frame. The oasis is yours. If you are ready to stop being a linguistic victim and start being a global negotiator, type frame control in the comments. Let the 99% worry about their phonetics. We are focused on power. I am watching for the ones who are ready to lead the room. Part 1. The Negotiation Triad. Weapons of the Silent Master. Listen to the rhythm of the weak. When a 99% speaker is nervous in a high-stakes conversation, they leak social grease. They nod too much. They say yes to show they understand. And they rush their sentences to avoid being a burden on the native speaker's time. This is a suicide mission. The 1% use the first pillar of the negotiation triad. Tactical silence. In the oasis, silence isn't an empty space. It's a pressure cooker. When a native speaker makes a proposal or asks a difficult question, do not answer immediately. Look them in the eye, count to 4, and let the silence sit like a heavy weight. The native speaker, uncomfortable with the void, will often start talking again to fill it. They will lower their price. They will offer more information, or they will reveal their anxiety. By saying nothing, your English becomes infinite. You aren't struggling, you are evaluating. The second pillar is the clarification trap. Most learners are terrified of looking slow. They pretend to follow complex, idiomatic English because they don't want to admit they are non-native. This is a face-saving error that costs millions. The 1% weaponize their lack of understanding. They use phrases like, "Explain that again, but use simpler terms," or "I do not follow the logic of your last point." This does two things. First, it forces the native speaker to strip away their slang and fluff, exposing their actual argument. Second, it tires them out. While they are busy re-explaining and simplifying for you, you are conserving your mental energy. You are the judge and they are the applicant. Every time you force them to clarify, you are asserting frame control. You are making them work for your understanding. The third pillar is the heavy anchor. In the desert, learners try to be polite and fluid. In the oasis, we are blunt and static. When it is your turn to speak, use low-context English. Do not use maybe, perhaps, or I think. Use the heavy anchor. The price is X. The deadline is Y. This is not acceptable. Because you are a non-native speaker, people expect you to be direct. Use that expectation to your advantage. A native speaker being blunt can sound rude. A non-native speaker being blunt sounds decisive. It sounds like you have no time for games. You are anchoring the conversation in hard reality by using short, heavy sentences. You prevent the native speaker from talking around you. You force them to deal with your object rather than your language. Why does this work? Because of the contrast principle. Native speakers are used to social flow. They are used to the dance of politeness. When you refuse to dance, when you use silence, blunt anchors, and forced clarifications, you break their pattern. You create psychological friction. In that friction, the native speaker loses their confidence. They start to wonder what you know that they don't. They start to interpret your limited English as high-level calculation. They think, this person doesn't waste words. Therefore, every word they say must be vital. You are hacking their status perception. You aren't lacking fluency. You are possessing gravity. The 1% have a warrior's economy. They understand that fluency is a leaking asset in a negotiation. The more you talk, the more you reveal your accent, your grammar errors, and your insecurities. The less you talk, the more perfect your English remains. If you only say 10 words in a meeting, and those 10 words are clear, formal, and heavy, you have a 100% success rate. You are linguistic stealth. You move in, hit the target, and move out. The 99% are like a machine gun firing blanks. Lots of noise, no impact. The 1% are the sniper. One shot, one kill, one deal. Look at the boardroom mirror. If you look like you are studying them, they will fear you. If you look like you are trying to please them, they will exploit you. The negotiation triad is designed to make you the observer. By using the underdog advantage, you turn the tables. You make the native language a native burden. They have to be smooth. You only have to be effective. They have to entertain. You only have to execute. This is the silent power of the 1%. They have realized that in the kingdom of the talkers, the silent man is king. They have traded social acceptance for strategic dominance. The high-stakes conversation is not a test of your English. It is a test of your will. If your will is stronger than theirs, your English doesn't need to be better. It only needs to be a vehicle for your intent. Use the silence. Use the traps. Use the anchors. The 99% want to be understood. The 1% want to be obeyed. In the Oasis, we don't speak to connect. We speak to command. The desert is full of fluent slaves who work for broken English masters. Which side of the table do you want to sit on? Ask yourself, are you afraid of the silence, or are you the one who creates it? If you can sit in a room with a native speaker for 30 seconds without saying a word, you have already won. You have proven that you are comfortable in the void. You have proven that your ego is dead and your avatar is in control. The negotiation triad is your operating system. Install it. Test it. Rule with it. The 1% are waiting for the silent masters to take their place at the table. The triad is installed. The power is shifting. But there is a final linguistic ghost that can still haunt you. It is the native speed trap. That moment when they try to out-talk you to regain control. In part 2, I will show you the speed breaker, how to physically slow down a native speaker and force them to play at your tempo. Are you ready to take the remote control of the room? Part 2, the speed breaker, taking the remote control of the room. Listen to the sound of a native speaker in a panic. When they feel they are losing frame control, they use their greatest natural advantage. Speed. They throw idioms at you like grenades. They use sarcasm. They speak at 180 words per minute, hoping to drown your ability to process. The 99% try to swim faster to keep up. They gasp for air. They nod. They say, okay, just to survive the wave. This is a linguistic massacre. The 1% do not swim. They drain the pool. They use the second pillar of high-stakes dominance, the speed breaker. They understand that the person who controls the tempo of the conversation controls the outcome of the deal. The first step of the speed breaker is the physical disconnect. When a native speaker starts racing, do not lean in. Do not show effort. The 99% lean forward, squinting their eyes, trying to catch every word. This is a signal of submission. The 1% lean back. They break eye contact for a second to look at their notes. They take a slow sip of water. This physical calm is a psychological wall. It signals to the native speaker's subconscious that their speed has no effect on you. You are undrownable. By refusing to match their anxiety, you force them to realize that they are talking to themselves. You are the still point in their storm. The second step is the echo clarification. When they finish a high-speed, idiomatic paragraph, do not answer their question. Instead, pick one key word they used and repeat it back to them slowly. Sustainability? Or the timeline? Then, wait. This echo acts as a linguistic anchor. It forces the native speaker to stop their momentum and focus on that one point. You are editing their speech in real time. You are telling them, I am only interested in the signal. You can keep the noise. This selective listening is a massive status move. You aren't struggling to hear. You are filtering for value. The 1% know that the more you simplify a native speaker's speech, the more power you take from them. The third step is the formal interruption. Most learners wait for a gap to speak. In a high-stakes conversation, there are no gaps. Native speakers use bridge words to keep the floor. You must take the floor, but you do it with Oasis-grade politeness. You use a high-status interruption. One moment, let us pause there, or I need to anchor that point before we proceed. Notice the language. Let us. We. You are not asking for permission. You are directing the traffic by using formal, heavy language to interrupt. You don't look rude. You look executive. You have just hit the pause button on their remote control. Now, the room is playing at your speed. Why does this work? Because of the processing gap. It takes more mental energy to speak fast than it does to speak slow. By forcing the native speaker to slow down, to repeat, and to clarify, you are taxing their brain. You are making them work for the conversation. Meanwhile, you are operating in your oasis state, calm, calculated, and economical. You are the linguistic tortoise winning the race against the native hare. The 1% have realized that fluency is not about output per minute. It is about impact per syllable. They would rather say 3 words that change a mind than 300 words that just fill a room. Look at your fear of being a burden. You think that if you ask them to slow down, you are being annoying. This is slave logic. In the world of the 1%, the most important person is always the burden. The CEO's time is a burden. The judge's attention is a burden. By making the native speaker adjust to you, you are subconsciously signaling that your understanding is the most valuable asset in the room. You are training them to serve your focus. The 99% try to be low maintenance. The 1% are high value. High value is never easy. It is necessary. The speed breaker is the ultimate coup d'etat over the native environment. You are no longer in their world. You are inviting them into yours. You are creating a vacuum of speed. In this vacuum, every word you say carries 3 times the gravity. Every mistake you make is ignored because the vibe of your authority is so strong. You are linguistic stealth. You don't fight the current. You change the direction of the river. This is the silent power of the oasis. It is born in the moment you realize that you don't need to keep up. You only need to lead. Ask yourself, who is driving the car? If the native speaker is talking fast and you are sweating to understand, they are driving. If you are sitting back, taking pauses, and forcing them to clarify, you are driving. The speed breaker is your handbrake. Use it. Pull it. Feel the room slow down. Feel the power shift. The 99% are running to catch the bus. The 1% own the station. In the Oasis, we don't hurry. We arrive. The speed is broken. The floor is yours. But there is a final linguistic kill shot. You need to close the deal. It is the strategic vulnerability, the moment you use your broken English to make them feel safe right before you strike. In part 3, I will show you how to play the innocent master. Are you ready for the final move? We are entering the predatory deception. In the desert, broken English is a source of shame. In the Oasis, it is a camouflage. When you allow the native speaker to believe they are the smarter one because they are more fluent, they stop guarding their secrets. They become arrogant. And arrogance is the opening you need to strike. Read this with a dark, strategic wit. You are the innocent master who is about to own the room. Part 3. The innocent master using brokenness as a psychological trap. Listen to the ego of the native speaker. When they hear someone struggling with a preposition or using simple, childlike vocabulary, their brain performs a status calculation. They subconsciously categorize you as harmless. They think, this person is not a threat. This is the fluency bias. The 99% hate this bias. They fight it. They try to look smart to prove they aren't simple. The 1% do the opposite. They inhabit the bias. They use the third pillar of high-stakes dominance, the innocent master. They understand that if your opponent thinks you are simple, they will stop being strategic. They will leak their bottom line. They will explain their secrets. They will walk right into your trap because they don't think you have the English to set one. The first step of the innocent master is the simplification bait. When you are in a negotiation, do not use your formal precision immediately. Start with broken, high-value simplicity. Use short, almost naive questions. Why is this price? What happens if we wait? I do not see the win for me. Because the words are simple, the native speaker assumes the thought is simple. They start to over-explain. They start to justify. While they are busy teaching you, you are dissecting them. You are looking for the cracks in their logic that they wouldn't show to a smooth negotiator. You are using your English as a mirror that reflects their own arrogance back at them. You aren't lacking vocabulary. You are luring information. The second step is the language barrier pivot. This is the most lethal move in the Oasis playbook. When the negotiation reaches a critical point, when they have backed you into a corner or made a demand you don't like, you pivot to the barrier. You say, I am sorry, my English. I am not sure I follow this complex point. Let us stop here. I need to consult my team dictionary. This strategic confusion is a reset button for the room. It kills their momentum. It gives you a timeout to think without looking weak. A native speaker who asks for a break looks stressed. A non-native speaker who asks for a break because of language looks diligent. You are using the very thing you used to be ashamed of as a tactical cloak. You are the ghost that they cannot pin down. The third step is the final strike. After you have played the innocent for 90% of the meeting, after they have leaked their data and lowered their guard, you switch the frequency. You drop the simple act and you hit them with one perfectly constructed, formal precision sentence. You use the authority protocol. You look them in the eye and you say, based on the inconsistencies in your proposal, we require a 15% adjustment to finalize this acquisition. The cognitive dissonance this creates is devastating. Because they expected simple, the precise hits them with 10 times the power. It is a linguistic ambush. You have just proven that you were the master all along. You didn't find the words. You were holding them. Why does this work? Because of expectation management. If you start the meeting trying to sound like a genius, the native speaker is on high alert. They are looking for your flaws. But if you start as the underdog, they relax. The 1% have realized that power is not about looking powerful. It is about being effective. They have a warrior's humility. They don't need the ego hit of sounding smart in the first 5 minutes. They are willing to be the fool for the first hour so they can be the owner for the next decade. They have turned their broken English into a Trojan horse. By the time the native speaker realizes there are soldiers inside, the gates are already open. Look at your pride trap one last time. You want to be seen as fluent because you want to be seen as equal. The 1% don't care about being equal. They care about being superior. If looking fluent makes the negotiation harder, they throw fluency away. If looking broken makes the deal easier, they embrace the brokenness. They have a sovereign mindset. They aren't guests trying to learn the host's rules. They are invaders who are rewriting the map. The innocent master is the ultimate coup d'etat over the native speaker's ego. You are using their own prejudice as the rope to hang their strategy. This is silent power in its most dangerous form. The high-stakes conversation is a game of information asymmetry. The person who knows more wins. By playing the innocent master, you ensure that the native speaker always talks more than you. You ensure that they underprepare for your countermove. You ensure that the frame is always tilted in your favour. The 99% want to be admired for their English. The 1% want to be wealthy because of their English. In the Oasis, we choose the wealth. We choose the win. We choose the silence. Ask yourself, is your English a costume or a weapon? A costume is for those who want to look the part. A weapon is for those who want to win the war. The innocent master is the sharpest blade in your arsenal. It requires you to kill your ego, to embrace the ugly phase, and to trust in your silent power. The native speaker thinks they are playing a language game. You know you are playing a power game. The desert is full of fluent people who lost the deal. The oasis is full of quiet people who own the desert. Which one are you? The weapons are ready. The trap is set. The coup d'etat is imminent. But there is a final linguistic seal you must apply to make your victory permanent. It is the post-negotiation silence. In the final outro, I will show you how to walk out of the room as a global legend. Are you ready to claim your kingdom? This is the final seal on your dominance. We are performing the linguistic exit. Most people finish a high-stakes meeting by babbling nervously, trying to stay friendly or over-explaining their points. The 1% do the opposite. They leave the room with a silence so heavy it haunts the native speaker for days. Read this with the chilling, absolute confidence of a ghost who has just walked through a wall. Listen to the heartbeat of the room after you stop talking. In the desert, that silence feels like an error. In the oasis, it is your signature. You have just performed a psychological heist. You walked into a room where they expected a student, and you left as a strategist. You used their own language, their own home field, to dismantle their arrogance. You didn't do it with a perfect accent. You did it with frame control. You didn't do it with a massive vocabulary. You did it with tactical silence. The 99% are still out there, apologizing for their prepositions. But you have just realized that English is not a subject you are trying to pass. It is a vibration you are using to rule. The innocent master has left the building. The 1% understand that the most powerful part of a negotiation is the aftermath. When you walk out, do not look back. Do not offer one last social sentence in your native tongue to soften the blow. Stay in your English avatar until the door clicks shut. Let them wonder about you. Let them debate whether your broken English was a mistake or a trap. By maintaining your silent power until the final second, you ensure that your high-status image remains unbroken. You have performed a coup d'etat on their perception of you. They no longer see a foreigner. They see a force of nature. They don't see limited English. They see unlimited intent. Imagine the legend you are building. In the boardrooms of London, New York, and Singapore, they will talk about the person who said very little but took everything. They will talk about the slow speaker who made them feel like they were the ones who didn't understand the language. This is the ultimate oasis victory. It is the moment when the native speaker realizes that fluency is a cheap toy and authority is the real goal. You have stopped being a guest in the global economy and you have become a shareholder. You have realized that the world doesn't belong to those who speak the best. It belongs to those who mean the most. The 99% are talkers. You are an executor. The high-stakes conversation was just a test of your will. You passed. You traded your ego for the win. You traded politeness for power. The desert is a graveyard of articulate people who were too weak to hold the silence. The oasis is a fortress of quiet masters who owned the future. Do not apologize. Do not explain. Do not retreat. Your English is a weapon. Your silence is a shield. Your voice is the law. The innocent master is dead. Long live the global legend. Welcome to the Oasis.